I know, right? We're clocked.
Sure, you can call for it.
It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the April 2020 board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Gann,
Here.
Mullins,
Here.
Noggle,
Here.
Witcher,
Here.
Whiteman.
Here. If you would, please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any public to be heard?
No.
So we'll just move right into our discussions then.
So if it would be okay with you all, I was gonna just kind of go through items 4, 5, 6, and 7, kind of in a unified group. I know you had a chance to read notes that I've emailed earlier, but just in terms of student empowerment, obviously we're in a much different place than we were before spring break. And I have to tell you, from the standpoint of our team working together to come up with a plan that was, I feel like, a distance learning plan with some integrity and coordination. They did a good job. The man sitting right there was really very instrumental in a lot of sleepless nights, tolerating all of us, but putting together a plan that I feel like was really good. You know, going into a situation where there's so many unknowns. Every decision we've had to make thus far has been a series of, this is the best way we know how to do it in the context that we're in. Day by day, that was changing, so it's pretty hard. I will say we've had the opportunity to draw people back in together. First couple of days of distance learning was no doubt a little ridden with teacher anxiety, doing things right. One of my favorite pieces was Rebecca Anderson from Boyd getting online the first day. She actually posted on Facebook her blooper. But we also went into it with this kind of approach of ultra flexibility, trying to connect with kids, offering them some semblance of normalcy, and just doing the best we can. I think we learned a lot about ourselves. I met with the SSEA this afternoon at 4. We spent a good hour on a meeting, and the feedback was pretty phenomenal. They were pleased with how it had gone. Once we got over the first day or two jitters, I think everybody was a lot more confident and even had some fun moments. One of my favorites was when our junior high teachers had her kids online for the first time in 3 weeks, saw their friends, and they got excited. Student engagement across the district for online learning, depending on the school site, varies a little bit, but 50 to 80%, which I'm very pleased with. We went in full well knowing that we weren't going to be critical about students and their grades. We were really going to try to bolster them. And there were a few that thought maybe we should have reserved that piece of information until later on in the semester, but when it's all said and done, I think people are pretty pleased with it. And we talked through, of course, that group of teachers, as you know, has the agenda, they're looking it over, so we talked through even the calendar, and they were very positive, which made me ecstatic. They're a good group of people. I think as a whole, our staff, and I want to say teachers across the state, honestly, not just in Sand Springs, really do have a heart for kids and really want to do the best thing. I think everybody's missing normalcy in the way that we know it. A couple of my principals were talking about families that reached out. One specifically had a few families that had lost their jobs, and the first person they sought out was the school principal. So when you think about how much connection school has to families with kids, whether they're 4 or whether they're 18, it's a pretty powerful connection. So just the ability to provide, some academic support, no doubt, but that emotional and stability, the support of seeing somebody that I'm used to seeing on a regular basis again, it was pretty powerful. We were hearing story after story after story of people reconnecting. So all in all, I think we've learned a lot. I think in an effort to be prepared in case we're in the same predicament in the fall where we will be taking grades and we will be producing a grade book and work to constitute credits for especially graduation from high school, but also the little ones learning how to read. I think that this was kind of real-time practice of what a format might look like if we have to continue. I also think we've all come to the conclusion that connection at school, coming to school, is a really important piece of a child's education, and that's been a pretty clean epiphany at this point as well. So all in all, I think we learned that there are folks that were maybe a little bit behind the technology curve, and then a lot of folks that were ahead of the technology curve. But what was fun to see is how teachers collaborated together and relied on their colleagues, and I feel like this process has brought us all closer together as a team, which has been it's been a strong impact for me personally. Sean, I don't know, you're in the middle of kind of what you see with curriculum. If you want to add anything to that, but in summarization, I think it's been pretty positive.
We've heard feedback from teachers that they're learning a lot right now as far as how to do distance learning, and it's something that they said that they wish they had paid a lot more attention to previously, some of them, but I think things are going well, and it's definitely a learning curve for teachers, but they're doing very well with it.
Sean and Tina continue to have a Q&A daily or
twice a week. We did one today.
And teachers are able to Q&A, call in to our tech department and ask questions of, here's what I'm hung up on, how to do this. And really about 20, how many of you had 25 or so?
About 25 each time.
Mm-hmm. So it's just been in the context of something that is terrible, I try to look for the bright spots and the silver linings, and there are a few. So with that said, I'd like to move on to...
I want to add one thing that all schools were challenged to come up with a distant learning plan. Right. And I saw on a couple of instances where they were using San Francisco's plan as the example that they were giving other schools. So thank you for doing that. Yes. I like it when we're the leader.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's so cool what you guys put together.
So a story about that, I served on a webinar for the State Department of Ed the Sunday before it launched. And my neighbor down the street, she worked for Tulsa Public, and her husband called, who works for us, and said Lisa was online at the webinar and heard our superintendent talking about how, what we were doing, and so she thought that was kind of cool. It's been a challenge. I will say this has been like any other challenge we've ever had in the past. I know Ms. Wagon texting, so we were up for a good challenge always, and I said this has been the biggest one so far, and we're tackling it. So I'm proud of us. We're doing a good job.
Good job.
Good job.
And one comment was passing through my mind. I know you guys probably thought that we had time to do it. I don't know, but I don't know if the right word is ledger or journal, but to keep the technical details of the thought processes and maybe what worked, what didn't work, and not only in the technical logistics, but even in like the story you were sharing, right? Some of those human angle stories too, because I really think I don't know if we'll ever.
This is history.
Yeah, it's history.
Yeah, when you're talking about that, this is a piece of history that no one's ever experienced in our time. Mm-hmm. And it'll go down as much like Vietnam. It's not Vietnam, but it really is a historical, global event that we're living through that's unlike. I've talked to a couple of people off a limb regarding just fear of our own teachers. I had a late conversation with one of our staff members a couple of weeks ago, just that fear of what's happening. Is this the end of time? People can let their minds run very wild. And so, I had to, you're just you're the counselor, the teacher, the administrator, the leader, the decision maker. I'm saying not just me, but all of us as a team, and to a whole bunch of different people. And it's just, it's a different place to be, no doubt.
The world is much smaller.
What's that?
The world is much smaller than we realize.
Oh my
That
gosh.
every person in the world has been touched with this pandemic.
Well,
in
and
a
every
short period of
school
time.
in the nation is dealing with the same thing. It's not like this is an Oklahoma problem this is in every school, every state, every city, every town in the country problem. So I try to find some comfort in that when we solve ours, everyone else is trying to do the same thing. It's just, wow, take a deep breath. But, we're in a better place, and I do think that the learning that's occurring right now with our people is healthy. I do think that's healthy. I think it's healthy for all of us, and we're growing, for sure. Any other comments?
I've heard is that I asked a few of the teachers, how it's going, and some of them are like, I've been really pleasantly surprised that kids I didn't think were participating are participating. And the ones I really thought would be every day just show up on occasion. They said that it's kind of an interesting dynamic across what I've heard. So
Yeah, I think one time, maybe the first time, in one of Samuel's classes, he said it had 26 kids on. The second time, 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you get the parents, I don't know if Mr. Long will want to share, but that really do have this urge to make sure their kids don't get complacent, and they finish. I mean, there are some character lessons too, if we watch for them and be in tune to it, that we're building, and you don't even realize it. Even if it might be, I'm going to finish what I start. It might be, I need to have empathy. There's so many that you could just draw out and learn from a bigger sense than just, can I add 3 plus 3? I think it's hit us all. They figured out a way to do Gold Week. They're still earning pennies for Day Spring Villa. So, and they wouldn't let it die. Carrie Slater recalled and said, hey, there's pennies in the building. I'm like, what? There are pennies in the building. We need to go get the pennies. And so I teased about that. That was a real conversation I had in just that way. And so we touched base with all the elementary principals, and we figured out a way to capture the pennies so they can continue the fundraising. Stuff will bring you to tears with.
Well, yeah, it's hard for me as a parent to emphasize finish what you start when I wouldn't make my kid finish the semester that they started.
Right.
I can't go, well, you got to finish your wrestling season, you got to finish this, you got to finish that, blah, blah, finish your work, and then go, oh, well, you can just quit the semester because it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
No, that's not going to work.
Exactly.
You started the semester, you're going to finish. Whatever the teacher gives you to do, you're going to do.
Right.
I don't care. You can whine and cry that you've got a day in that class already. I don't care.
Right.
You're going to finish what they give you.
I feel like one of the things that became blatantly obvious to me early on is we're faced today, the adults of today, the leaders of today, have this real world problem that we have to tackle and we have to figure out, and we are doing that. And we say that all the time to our kids. We need to teach them how to think critically and solve real world problems. And what became very obvious to me, and the sense of urgency, is we're going to, by golly, teach our kids how to think that way, because they're going to have to deal with something. It might not be a pandemic, it might not be whatever, but they're going to deal with something. We've got to prepare them for that. And it's about teaching them grit and resilience and flexibility and the ability to think beyond what I know and think outside the box to fix something. And there's just so many things. So I think we have this sense of enlightenment about what we should be doing with kids later. I know that sounds very altruistic or philosophical, but man, times like this really send you into that world where you start getting very introspective and really evaluating everything we do. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way we were doing things before. I think the tools that we're putting in our toolbox right now to teach children will resonate and they'll stick and we'll be carrying it forward. I do. I'm watching it happen before my eyes with people getting out of comfort and expanding and doing things differently, whether we like it or not. And I just think that's what it's all about.
Well, how this is gonna impact the virtual academy in the fact of more kids now are getting exposed to how virtual sort of gets run.
Right.
I'm sure this is not the exact way that virtual gets run, but they're getting a taste of, oh, I'm sitting here doing my schoolwork in my bedroom, in my house, in my chair, in my
Pajamas.
Sean and I
pajamas, exactly, you know, and
I know.
I can get up at 10 o'clock, and as long as I get all these things done by the due date, I'm there. You know?
Sean and I have had that same conversation. In fact, the spark is, and this is so in alignment with curriculum, is virtual meetings. So we pulled in Jay Roder, Sean, myself, Kristen's been involved, Carrie Slagever, and started to visualize what virtual looks like. And we're capturing some of the ninth grade center space in the media center to have, because I don't know, one of two things. It can either expand it, which is what my hypothesis is, or people be so ready to get back in school that it'll get narrow. But I feel like
you're talking about two different things.
Right, exactly.
You're talking about the kid and the parent.
Right.
The kid wants to stay home, and the parent wants to kick him out.
Right, I know. So I don't know what that looks like, but I know, here's what I do know. I know that if whatever happens after this, we better be ready for it.
Yeah.
Period, and that's where I'm at. We're gonna be ready for it, and because that's what you do. That's what you do as an educator. So, I don't know, this is the kind of stuff that wakes me up in the middle of the night, and trust me, I've done a little bit of that the last 3 or 4 weeks. So anyway, I think it's a good thing. I have to look at it as a growth model, and we're getting better. So
It's gonna be our new handbook.
yes, but to your point, I've got 2 notebooks that I've kept copious notes, not necessarily some of those touchy-feely stories, but I have taken more notes in regard to how to in the last 4 weeks than I ever have before. It's crazy. And I'll keep those, I've been labeled COVID. I mean, I actually have been labeled as a piece of history that I won't throw away. It's the weirdest thing. But I learned it off of it. I have a chapter in the manual. Yeah, it's true. It's true. If you're ready to move on, resource innovation, there's a plethora of things going on with resource innovation. I know you have, I'm sure, kept up with the state of finance through OSSBA and the other channels that you have to receive information. There's a bunch of them on that I sent you via email having to do with the state of affairs. To my knowledge, the Board of Equalization, I don't think met today, but that's the governing board that has to actually declare revenue failure. I do not believe that's happened yet. I didn't see it today. Basically, Stitt signed 2 bills that will allow us to be whole through April. There's one in limbo right now. Basically, they're able to tap into the rainy day fund and stabilization fund in order to help us through the rest of the year. And then we're looking at a revenue failure. There is no doubt. They're going to declare one for this year. No doubt there will be one next year as well. Even if they keep us whole this year, which we suspect, I think the will of the legislature is to do that. We're looking at some big cuts for next year. Greg Morris, if you were here, he's at the office. He's on call. If I need to call him, I certainly don't mind doing that if you guys have questions for him. But he's predicting a 5 to 10% cut in state aid for next year. So that just means we need to continue to be more, as diligent as we have been in the past about protecting our fiscal stability. I have no doubt that we'll do that. But it certainly sends us back into a very staunch reminder of fiscal year 16 and 17, where we were in this predicament, making sure that we were doing what we need to do. We survived that one, and we survived it well. We'll survive this one, we'll survive it well. I just don't have a crystal ball to know exactly how long that's going to last. The economy is, hurting. We do have stimulus money provided by the federal government. We're supposed to get that at the end of April, which will be an apportionment of the fiscal year 19 Title I funds. They're looking about 83% of our Title I allocation for 2019. That will help. I believe, and I'll have to study it when I get it, but I believe we have 2 years to spend that money, meaning that we can create a little bit of a cushion savings for us so that we have the ability to help us over a 2-year period. So that's a good thing. If you remember, some of you guys, I think, were on the board back in 2008-9 when we were getting that stimulus money through the Obama administration. And that helped us quite a bit during that downtime as well. So there's a lot to be determined. There's a lot of unknowns. We're just going to plug along and do the best we can. And we are scrutinizing positions that we know are vacant. So as you know, Carrie Slater has taken over the director of special ed, that leaves her coordinator position over in high school. And what we're talking through is a plan for how we can share some leadership in that way in special ed so that maybe we cannot replace that position. So talks like that, no real decisions have been made. Just know that talks like that are starting to happen as we wind down the school year. And it makes me sick to think, honestly, to think about having to kind of relive those cut days. I'm going to choose not to focus on it to the extent that it makes us negative. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that we're doing everything that's physically responsible, and that's what we'll do. So more to come for sure on that one. All right, moving on, unless you all have questions about that one. Families and communities, I have to tell you, we've communicated more frequently with families than we have ever, I think. I'm extremely proud of our COVID-19 page on our website. We have just been pushing ideas out as a unit. Sean's been a keeper of the website, but just as soon as we get something new, we're asking him to push it out. Trying to keep up with health and State Department FAQs and the status of how come we can't get hotspots, to basically anything in this situation that we can put out to parents. And child nutrition. By the way, 26,000 meals in child nutrition the last 3 weeks, and they served almost 2,000 today, which tells me that a lot of people need food. We did send out an employee letter today, because I will say this, our child nutrition department is a little stressed about the continuation of some of our people that fall into those risk categories continuing to work. And so the letter was to notify our support staff that you could be asked to operate in a different role than you were hired for. So a paraprofessional really could be asked to go hand out meals. Everybody's getting paid, no doubt, and there's a letter from Councilor Watts to support our decision to pay our people. But at the same time, your contract is based on, your pay is based on your own call. Meaning that if we notify you the day before that we need you on X job at this site, then we would expect you to be there. So that's been a whole nother piece of that puzzle to figure out how to process through and make sure we have essential workers doing essential functions and feeding them is going on. So it's going really well. It's just, wrinkles sometimes with people getting sick. I had a question today about, do we have anyone in the district that has tested positive? The answer is no. I do know that the 3 staff members that did have a test, but all of them came back negative, which was a good thing. I don't know how we as a community can get through a pandemic like this and not know someone that eventually will test positive for it. So not to be negative, but we all have to kind of brace ourselves for that's probably a reality that we'll have to face at some point. But thus far, none of our employees have been in that predicament. So that's good. That's a good piece of news in that way. And then number 7, the health and safety. The big news is we've developed a protocol that continues to morph. Lindsay Steamville has been instrumental in helping us make sure we're following the guidelines of the CDC and then being in contact with the Tulsa Health Department. It's now a 5-page document. I feel like the SDE FAQs have gone from like 15 pages to 29 pages, and so ours keeps increasing too, but basically is how does a person come back to work if they have tested positive? So that's a new piece. If you haven't pulled that link up, I think that's a live link to the actual briefing document.
Where did that come from?
Mostly the health recommendations from the CDC.
So we just kind of wrote a
And we-
recommendation that way.
What I've discovered with people as we're trying to sift through this abundance of information and the intent for everyone around us to try to be helpful, what happens is we get this influx of, it's almost like over information, and processing all of it coming in from different perspectives from a dozen different groups can be super complicated. So what we try to do is simplify it in a way so that when we push guidance out to our employees, it's pretty simple to understand, and if they have questions, they ask us. Just like when we came in tonight and took your temperature, that's a protocol we put in place at all of our buildings. Obviously, administration is probably the most frequented building other than cooks at the sites, but that's just to keep everyone safe, trying to put some parameters in place so that our essential workers are coming to work and staying healthy so they can still provide essential services. So CDC mostly, and then some instructions with the Tulsa County Health Department as well. And then just for your convenience, I did add Governor Stitt's executive order. I thought that might be helpful for you guys to have as we kind of process through his recommendations and what he's asking us to do.
Anybody, you just said something that caused me to have a question about, we're still paying everybody for all the stuff that they've done. There are some, what we call extra duty stipends that we pay for various tasks. Those tasks aren't needed to be done now.
Yeah,
We are still paying those people for those tasks.
yeah.
Okay,
So now most of them are coaches.
right,
And we're paying them
okay,
for this year.
thank you.
When this started, when we went into our first cabinet meeting, understanding that this was going to be an employment nightmare, one of the things we wanted to do is make sure we pay everybody, especially considering that we're probably going to be made whole this year. And so why would you not continue to pay people if you've already budgeted for them? So that was super important for us. In justification, say for our track coaches, I mean, the season is not happening right now. Soccer would be another one. Baseball got cut off abruptly mid-season. There's still some pre-planning preparation that goes into preparing for those seasons. It's not just about I show up for track meet. They're training athletes. And so if I guess in my own mind, if I need a justification, those people put in a lot of time prepping for extracurricular activities. So we're going to continue to pay them. Rod Sitt and I had a conversation last week about, say, for football season coming up, depending where we're at, we just hired a new set of football coaches. And so how does that work with their stipend? But I've been pretty keenly aware of our people and how they're still putting together workout plans for kids. Or in preparation, there's a lot of things that go into the preparatory work of a football season. So it's just not all about what you see on the field that night. There's a lot of things that go into detail. So frankly, I'm feeling like all of those things are justified at this point.
I agree.
Okay, good. I thought you would. It's probably better to say that out loud publicly. Ready to move on?
Anything else? We're on with the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, let me pull up my notes. I did take a few notes. I may have tossed it on the consent agenda. Most of it is, I've got a new copy, so bear with me for a second. Most of it's pretty typical. I wanted to mention on item 19, we have to be determined on the high school graduation. We have changed that date to June the 27th, so I'd ask you to make a note of that at the Navy Center. That's pending, we can meet at that point.
You want to talk about the drive-in?
So we can talk about that. We talked about that today, actually, and we didn't really want to cancel it, but I didn't know.
He needs to know this week.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just think, Stan and I talked about that today, and he said probably we should cancel what we're throwing out ideas about, on the 9th, the actual day that kids were supposed to graduate, doing a push for light up Sand Springs and try to promote everyone in Sand Springs to turn their lights, light up the stadium, light up the doobie, and maybe do a loop, much like a drag Maine, like you drag Maine. We used to drag Maine. I don't know if anybody else dragged Maine. But have like
We were talking about.
I don't know. But have like a loop, a big loop, so that people could just not line up like a parade, but you just join the loop and maybe drive for 20 to light up the class. I don't know. Commemorate the class of 2020. Throwing out some ideas that would lift them up, and maybe virtually on YouTube potentially show the senior slideshow on that night. Do some fun things. The other thing I thought about too, in terms of the drive-in, we really haven't talked about baccalaureate. And that's something that I say we, not me, we didn't, but I know the local church network started that tradition of baccalaureate a couple of years ago. And maybe that might be a good possibility, because I loved that event.
Where's the drive-in?
Admiral Twin.
Admiral
Okay.
Twin.
So they've offered to allow us to do graduation there as a drive-in event. We would have everything on the screen ultimately, even when we get out of the cars. It would be a ceremony, obviously memorable.
Yeah, it's true.
It's different, wouldn't it?
Mhm. So I figured that he would need to know. So when I thought of Sunday and I thought of the 10th, I think a broader discussion maybe for you and I or the board to have would be, could we do a baccalaureate? How would that look? Would it be, I don't know. I'm assuming he talked to the city to get approval for it, and that was a go?
We're good.
Okay, all right. So hang in there. Don't do anything yet until I have a full discussion with Mr. Trout, because we're grasping at anything to celebrate the class of 2020, and it's such a struggle. Anyway, so that's one I wanted to bring up and kind of share with you. ORU's been great to work with us. I think their thought was if we could do something formal at some point. Most of the schools reschedule theirs for a later date. I think Union rescheduled theirs for even into July. Some of the feedback I'm sure from parents are going to be that we've had a vacation plan. I just don't know if there's a good answer for any of it. It's a head scratcher. So I don't know. So to be determined, we need to talk about that when you get a piece of time.
What has been the response of parents and seniors of moving it to that late in June?
It's not bad. It hasn't been bad. There's been a few that have said, I've got vacation scheduled, I'm potentially going to be moving on, all that stuff, which is understandable. I think just that hype of not letting go of the formal graduation, but then, Mr. Mullins came in tonight bringing up a good point of, we got to do something different because we're still in this predicament. We can't shake hands. I actually had that conversation earlier today. I can't shake everybody. We can't put people at risk. So I think it's a head scratcher, and no one is really sure what to do because you can't predict. So I think parents are frustrated. I think honestly, if I was a parent of a senior, I'd probably be frustrated too. But in the same thread, it's everyone's problem everywhere. So I don't know, but don't reschedule yet until we talk tomorrow. The other thing is, I know Mr. Mullins brought up item 20. We have canceled by those. You may have seen some airline tickets that were procured before this all happened. Travel's out. We're not doing travel, so just so you know that. Let's see, I think.
You snuck in another resignation on us.
Listen, can you believe that?
That surprised me.
Which one, Sandy?
Sandy,
Yeah, so she's not retiring, she's resigning.
moving,
Yeah, I saw Sandy, yeah.
moving to Arkansas.
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
I tried to talk her out of it.
Keep trying.
No. She's gonna be sorely missed. Debbie Harrington is another one. Voice of Sand Springs. How do you allow her to retire?
Who's that?
Debbie Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's always sad to see those people that have been around so long and have been such a value to our district and served us so well that, anyway. But they're allowed. People are allowed to resign. People are allowed to retire, unfortunately. And so we just wish them well, for sure. Of course, Gloria Thompson, head custodian. Can't forget the people that really are the backbone of what we do. Let's move. I think that really those are the things that I wanted to bring to your attention and approving the consent agenda.
Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Mullin.
Aye.
Noggle.
Aye.
Winters.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
5 minutes.
Right. On to action items. Do I have a proposal to go into executive session? Okay. Let's move on. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, item 28, proposed appointment of the 3 individuals listed.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Mullin.
Aye.
Noggle.
Aye.
Winters.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. All right. Number 29.
Right, and just recall this is the item where we put Counselor Watt's opinion about our ability to pay our support staff based on our obligation to fulfill our contracts. I know the governor had an executive order that said, you know, ye shall pay. I think in just the element of, number one, making it public, and B, recognizing that we have counsel that recommended, our legal counsel recommended us to do that, to hold true to our contractual agreement with our staff. I wanted to make that an action item on the action board agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve item number 29.
Second.
Motion.
I appreciated Councilor Watson's letter to us too, that stated that, you know, to get legal representation that individually that our life individuals down a little bit.
Sure.
I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. And he, if you notice, he did put the statute.
Statutes, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep that on file.
Thank you.
Vote, please.
Dunn.
Aye.
Mullin.
Aye.
Noggle.
Aye.
Winters.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Number 30 is the distance learning framework of the State Board of Education, but what you see, and you have seen it before, is the Sand Springs guidelines and model that we are in the process of implementing now. I thought it was important to have action on the fact that we changed our model from a brick and mortar, for the most part, deliverance of instruction to a virtual model. So I'd ask you to approve that item as well.
Make a motion to approve item number 30.
A second.
Now, that is just for this year.
Well, until we're back in.
And so when we get back in brick and mortar, do
Right.
we amend this at that time, or we just keep this as a policy?
I think that it needs to stand, and here's the reason I think it needs to stand. When we already have a virtual academy that's pretty solid, but what this does, in my opinion, and Sean, you can chime in, but this
Only if you
has
come
the
around
model in writing. It establishes a solid foundation for how we deliver distance online instruction. I don't know, Sean, if you would debate that or not, but I think this is a good platform for us all to stand on and
Yeah.
moving forward.
It does, and it gives us some options that we can use in the future if we need to lean on what we're doing now as an alternative to all sorts of different things, ranging from suspension to long-term absence if a student has to be hospitalized or something like that. So I think it allows us some growth in the future.
We're revisioning, part of our virtual discussion was re-envisioning how we handle a suspension, even short or long-term, or in school. And it really opened up a lot of ideas that we put on the table as discussion points as we move forward. And the whole point is trying to elevate kids so that they are successful. period in the story, whatever that predicament they might find themselves in. So it was really a discussion about establishing a foundation for the purpose of having kids. And so I don't think so, Mr. Mullins, I think that would stand moving forward.
My suggestion though, just look at, there's a lot of date and very specific
Right.
time frame information included in that. So if we use this in the future, or future years, we might want to modify those.
Right,
components.
absolutely, you bet,
So,
you bet,
okay, cool. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Vote please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullins.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Waiters.
Aye.
Whitman.
Aye. Okay, now we're to, I believe, yes, all the construction.
All
These have to be
the-
voted on individually.
They do need to be voted on individually. And what you're seeing is a series of items that were part of our bond election that we had made, obviously promised to the public that we would complete. And so Ms. Kavach, who, I can call her if you need to ask questions for sure. We were trying to keep the attendance down tonight with our staff. But we can certainly get online if you have questions, but all of these were approved as a part of our bond issue from last year. All of them, actually. So just one at a time, if you have any questions about a specific piece. I think one at a time as we vote, maybe that, go one at a time questions.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 31. Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any questions? Vote please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullins.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Waiters.
Aye.
Whitman.
Number 32.
Tell me about TES production, I'm not sure. I'm familiar with them.
It's a Gene, it's a one that did on the sound system at Charles Page High School at Clyde Boyd, and it was a combination of sound panels that would, that building, auditorium was built as I've already described, but it wasn't built to have amplification. There's a word for that. So it was built just to use your voice, and so there have been, as you know, some problems in that auditorium about being able to hear. And so we went through a couple of companies last year to really get what we felt was the right effect to make it work. We actually did this out last summer and Ms. Botch was not happy with it. And so we went back to the drawing board, issued bids for it yet again. And TES was a company that she felt strongly about, that would do work that needed to be done to get the sound where it needed to be. Beyond that, I'll have to call her for specific questions.
Yeah, that's an area I have a little bit of knowledge in and a little bit always concerned because I don't feel like we've always had very
It's been
good
awful.
sound in most of our
Right.
facilities.
Agreed.
And so I'm curious about the company. I'm not familiar with them, so I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
No, especially on the football.
Football field, the doobie, auditoriums in every school.
No, I agree. There's,
Even I would say our cafeteria, the cafeteria.
yeah, I'm not gonna argue that, for sure.
Just concerned.
Any other discussion? I can't remember.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion and a second.
Two.
I'll say.
Motion and a second. Vote please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullins.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Waiters. Whitman.
Aye. All right, item number 33.
This is Pratt Elementary. Water for the teacher's lounge, we talked about that as part of the bond. The other thing that we have talked about at Pratt was the switch to the bathrooms to make them in the front of the building handicap accessible. There's not enough space. What we're going to end up doing is probably a remodel on those. But the other item that Pratt really wanted was just water in the eating area where the teachers actually eat lunch. So.
I'll make a motion to approve item 33.
Second.
Motion and a second. Vote please.
Gann. Mullins.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Waiters. Whitman.
Aye. 34.
I'll make a motion, we approve item 34.
Same concern, it's the same company for me, but
Have you ever worked at TES before, Rusty, at all?
no, I've never heard of it.
Me neither, but
Do you want, I'm more than happy to call Jeannie. She's on call. If you would like me to call her.
I was gonna say she's on.
Hey Siri, call Jeannie to watch.
Call Jeannie Hatch. Hold on.
Hey Jeannie, how are you doing?
Good.
Good. Hey, listen, we are at item 34, and the question really is about TES Productions. Mr. Gunn just was curious about the company, maybe some background on who they are.
They are one of the leading providers for stage production in this part of Oklahoma. They were recommended to me, and they've been the best to work with so far. They do jigs, they've done Bixby, they do a lot of schools, they do a lot of auditoriums for schools. So they don't overbuild, but they know what we need. And I've been really pleased with them.
Did you guys have any questions specifically?
Yeah, I'll Google some looking at them.
Okay, gotcha. Do you guys think, I'm gonna keep you on the line just a little bit longer in case anybody else, thank you. Hold on for a second. Okay.
Any other questions?
Here's mine.
Do we have a second?
We have a motion and a second. No,
I don't think we have a
motion
second
and
yet.
I'll say.
Any other questions or discussion? Vote please.
Ben.
Aye.
Mullins.
Aye.
Novell.
Aye.
Winters.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye. Okay, item number 35.
And this would be the construction for the baseball softball field. This was also one that we put on hold last year, mostly about timing. Once we got the bids, we really wanted to do that work all at one time, so to take softball and baseball. And it became an issue of getting it done before the softball season started, honestly. So this year, we're gonna get a head start since we have this continued baseball season. So as soon as we get approval, we're gonna get out and try to get those fields.
I'll make the motion, we approve item 35.
Second.
And my understanding was that the baseball field needed to be raised up. So
Yeah.
they could break it, but softball field, I didn't know if there was anything.
Softball field needs drainage. That field holds a lot of water, so when everything,
The pitcher's mound is too low in the softball field, about 4 inches is all. We're gonna raise it just a little bit. It'll be a quick fix, all infield.
So really raising them both, because there's so much
We're
rock out
raising
there.
them both, yes.
Okay.
On the
It's so dry, I
baseball
don't know.
field, second base is 24 inches below home plate, so it needed the most dirt. But understanding what the slope restrictions were, we were able to change the slope, not keep it all a 0.5% slope, but go 0.5% on the infield, and then 1 inch to the grass line, and then 1.7 maximum in the outfield, and that really saved us a lot of money.
this has been a long drawn out process, I will tell you that. And I'm thankful we have a little bit more time this summer to get that work done. Thank you, Jeannie. Any other
This is
questions?
irrigation system as well, I saw in there.
Jeannie, did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Irrigation system as well?
That includes irrigation, sod, that actually has some money in there to take the fence down and replace it in case I needed to, but most of them agreed with my design, and it looks like we may not have to take the fence down, so we may get some money back out of that bid. And I wrote the contract so the fence and the irrigation was a contingency, so that to give the irrigation guy a little bit more time to recalculate what he's providing us. But he reminded me that irrigation system is 15 to 18 years old, and the valves are going out, and he spent $7,000 1 year and another $3,000 another year. He spends about $1,000 a year just maintaining our sprinkler system. So it's time to replace that, really. And I have the money in there to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Knobel.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. All right, next item, number 36.
So in an effort to clean up, I guess, Charles Page High School, we are proposing we paint the interior of Charles Page. I don't know, Jeannie, if you want to expand on the scope of work.
On the interior, we'll paint all of the halls, and then we walked the building with every painter that did it, and there were 10 doors that really, and frames that really needed to be painted in the high school itself, and then the auditorium will get painted, and there were about 10 doors there that needed to be painted also. So it's really just the halls, none of the classrooms today.
What's Memorial Stadium?
We'll be painted with Steve.
Memorial Stadium, Jeannie?
Memorial Stadium, all of the exterior doors get painted.
Make a motion to approve item 36.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Knobel.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. Item number 37.
Yeah, so that was the drama storage, when we started talking through the foot traffic and the need for expansion, especially adding 400 students to the campus at Charles Page High School, we need an expansion. So we bid that out as an alternative for the Charles Page High School 9th Grade Center Academy project. Really kind of waiting to see how money-wise we came out, because it ended up being a bigger project than what we first imagined. And we're ready to approve that based on the funding that we have available. So basically, it extends the drama areas, adds some expansion for that, and it solves our fire hazard
Can
problem.
I add to that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, one thing that it does, they've been doing stagecraft back of stage, and we have a lot of sawdust and a lot of combustibles back there that we really should not have on the stage. And the fire marshals has asked for a number of years to make that go away. So this storage also has a stagecraft component. They'll cut all their pieces out in that area, keep it out of the back of the stage. It will be sprinklered also, so it'll be a much, much safer environment for the kids.
Make a motion to approve item 37.
Second.
Can we come up with the dollar amount and put them on here?
Yeah, it's in there.
They're in there individually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you pull up, I believe at first, yes, it's 404,000 basically, and some change.
That's the total?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Knobel.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. All right, number 38.
38 is the furniture. This part was not in the bid package to begin with. This would be the furniture to put into the 9th grade center. Plus, we ordered for our conference room for the Joey Martin. It holds about 30 people consistently in a very cramped up space, so we used it. This is money that wasn't part of the revenue lease bond. This was a portion from previous bond money that we had from completion of projects, so it's not part of the 12.1 million revenue.
Here, this next to construction.
Oh, it's our admin conference room. That was a small part of it.
I'll make the motion to approve item 38.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, vote, please.
Gann.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Knobel.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. All right, on to item number 39. School
Item
calendar.
39, I'd like to pull it up and make sure you guys don't have any questions about it, because one of our goals in capturing a reflection of the calendar, even though this was waived by the State Board of Education, we really felt like in an attempt to provide a historical reference for what exactly happened this school year, we went ahead and redid the calendar. And so I'm going to pull it up so I can clearly explain what we're proposing. The calendar was basically the same as it had been approved at the beginning, or actually the end of last year, for the first 3 quarters, with the exception of 2 snow days in February on the 5th and 6th. So we documented that on this calendar. But when you look at the time after spring break, what you notice is the 23rd, March the 23rd through April the 3rd is tinted light blue, and that's an indication of the closure, the shutdown by the State Board of Education where students were not in school. To just kind of take you back through the history of where we've been, on the 25th of March, which was the Wednesday after we came back from spring break, the State Board of Education then again lifted the requirement for teachers to not be working. At that point, we were able to enlist our teachers in a lot of professional development. Basically implemented 4 full days of professional development from the 26th through really April the 1st, with some additional professional development Thursday and Friday that was not mandatory, basically. So online learning started, as you know, April 6th, and it continues to date. And what we are suggesting is continuing the online platform or the distance learning platform through the 15th. Coming up with a solution, I will tell you, I was in the camp at first. I know I talked to most of you about pushing through the end. The State Board of Education said you cannot close school before the 8th. Offered up the window the 8th to the 15th, but also said that if you wanted to finish your school year, you could. The idea behind the week after, which is designated in purple, is to give teachers time to, number one, wind down their grades, ready to go, especially 9th to 12th, when they're trying to issue credits for work toward graduation. It's time to do that. And then being a little bit flexible for kids that might still need to hand in some work up through the 21st. We discussed with every leader in the district, honestly, to get consensus on what that could look like. I know there's a lot of wrap up that teachers are going to be asked to do. Maybe not specifically those 4 days, but even into the summer, our freshman teachers are going to have to pack up their belongings and be ready for the move to the new center. But what resonated with me over the last few days is just that continuation of connection, as long as we can, with students to their teachers and to their teachers and their administrators, anything connection to school. What I do know about kids that go through a stressful event, there's an element of trauma, and consistency and sameness is important. So, I know I talked to you guys about the thought of kind of pushing through. I think there's a happy medium. I do know some of our administrators were thankful that we didn't say we were just going to cut off on the 8th because they felt like that wasn't long enough. I do think that sets us in a predicament where at least 6 weeks of distance learning, we have an opportunity to really kind of practice our skills that we've been learning without the overarching, we have grades and all of those things that kind of create some anxiety at school to begin with. So the last day, which originally that would be the 22nd, was a professional development day. I X that off, mostly because in the week after spring break and the following week, we were really investing a lot of time in structured professional development for teachers for learning. So I think we felt like as a unit that was enough. We had really asked them to participate in more professional development than is maybe required by the state, although I think it was healthy for us. The thing that I would bring to your attention is if you look at the bottom, in the summary of quarters at the bottom of the page, and let me explain the numbers to you. The first quarter and the second quarter were exactly as is. The third quarter we taught school, we were in school 46 days total because of the 2 snow days. And then what Ms. Arnold has done is in the last quarter where you see the 44, if we teach distance learning, that would have been if we'd finished out, but we didn't finish out because we had that 2-week closure. If we do 6 weeks of distance learning, then you see DL at 30. But what really resonates with me is the bottom number of 129, that's the actual number of days this year that students have been required to come to school. I let that resonate with you. They have been in school on a typical year. We spend 173, if you discount parent-teacher conferences, we spend 173 days in school, and this year our kids in school have had 129 plus an additional 30 distance learning, which would be a total, when it's all said and done, of 159. One of our elementary principals said, because we were talking through, 8, 15, we're talking about 5 days, it's not that many, but she said, I feel like our kids have already gotten shorted with instruction. And we're being asked now on how to construct summer reading for the purpose of catching up kids that are not going to be up to speed for the 3rd grade reading test. I don't know, I feel like it's a good recommendation for finishing up the year. We're not asking our teachers to do lesson plans at this point. We're not asking them to issue grades. We're simply asking them to continue connection with the families and then support kids and make connections and support emotionally. So I don't know, I'm up for conversation. But we spent a lot of time thinking through what the best way to close this year down would be, and this is where we arrived.
I've had to fill out with parents because I think we serve our city and we serve the parents specifically. So it's a straw poll.
Sure.
That's all it is. Did an online Facebook poll and gave basically 3 options. One's to finish out the original calendar. Another is to end at the earliest date the state allows with an extra week of catch up if you need to. And then the option, this option for C. And almost 80% of people said they'd like to finish on the 8th, this earliest possible.
I saw that. Truly, I saw that. I have to tell you, I never had really used social media as a mechanism for a metric that I think is solid, frankly. I saw a couple that I don't think maybe live in our districts. I think you get kind of a...
I'm trying to weed that out, and I
Yeah.
also weeded out anybody who left a comment, because I didn't want to use you
Yeah.
just raw.
How many responses did you have?
150.
Out of
So,
5,000.
yeah, I mean, that's a small number, but it's a sampling
Right.
of people. I personally probably lean toward that as well.
Yeah. That's not my recommendation, obviously.
Here's my predicament, or what, I think it's like I told you earlier.
Yeah.
First time they got on, they had 28 kids.
Right.
The next time they had 6 or 7 kids. I can continue to take a sample of how many kids, because I'm sitting right there, I can find out. And I guarantee you, it's not gonna go up. Once it was put out that those kids' grades would not go down, they'll only go up.
Sure.
You probably cut at least half of the kids that are interested in even doing it. And if the parents are at work and they're not monitoring or they're not taking care of business, you're not going to get any production out of those kids. You have the kids that need to be doing it so that they can get their grades up. Well, that's great.
That's great.
That is perfect. I mean, it's what I've suggested from the beginning. But I think you're going to get a lot of pushback just as soon as you find out. I know your teachers are going to say, we need this, we need this, we need this. And that's fine, because that's their profession and they want to do what's right for the kids, and I understand that. But I think what you're going to get is a bunch of pushback from the parents who are saying, the state has told us that we need to do this or we can do that. So why are we going? Because everything else that we've argued has always been the state. The state says this, the state says that. But now when the state says something that's different, well, now we're gonna buck the state and we're gonna do what we want to
I
do.
don't think that,
We're not-
what she's saying, we're not doing what the state said you can do this if you want, or you can do it the 15th. I'm looking at that other number, I appreciate you putting in 129 days in class. I think we shortchange these kids enough. I'm the opposite, Rusty. I want to go, make it for 2 weeks. Let's go.
But they're not in class.
Middle of June.
I know that, I'm
class.
sorry, I'm with Rusty.
Here's what.
They're not in class, they're not getting the instruction that they normally would
I
in
think we
class.
also give our teachers have worked their tails off to come up with a plan. And I'm so grateful and thankful that they've done what they've done. But they've scrambled and they're still scrambling. And I've talked to quite a few who have children of their own who are trying to manage getting online with my kid. So that, and trying to help their kid get online with their teacher or whatever. And man, I just think we give our teachers a break by saying,
Here's what I think. I
They're
think
professionals.
asking,
They're professionals.
Right.
Pay a lot of money to be professionals.
I am too, but I can't do it with a kid on my hip.
here's what I think.
There's a lot of people that are.
Here's what I think, you guys. I think 5 days is not enough to have not good, solid consensus. I also think that the kids that are staying engaged, because we're not asking teachers to do lesson plans, we're not asking them to grade, but there are folks who want to stay engaged. And so, to the greatest extent possible, our job, in my opinion, is to keep people connected. Because I've heard story after story about school is the first place that people go to, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people go to in order to have consistency and sameness. And so I don't think that stretching it to the 15th, which is what, it was the 8th to the 15th, they were letting you have a play of 5 days basically, or you could take it to the end if you wanted, is too much to ask for folks to stay connected. If they want, we're not penalizing people for not getting on. I mean, we know that the engagement is anywhere from 50 to 80% across the board. But what about those people?
What is it
that want to
overall?
That's what it is overall.
Well, 50 to 80%, it can't be 50 to 80%. What is it overall? Like, what percentage is it overall?
So Barbie did that connection with the staff for the people. And so she gave me a range, meaning that it's probably lower in some, bigger in the other. But I'm just here to tell you, if there is 10% of people that are wanting to stay engaged, I want to offer that service to them. I think, and Sean, you might chime in.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear a lot of, and I see this with my own youngest daughter, is that the younger kids have that deep connection to their teacher, and having that cut off in March the way it was is hard for a lot of younger kids. And them being able to stay connected with their teacher is extremely valuable. Plus, the one thing that concerns me the most is when you cut off school in May in a normal circumstance, in a normal year, and then you've got the summer gap, and then they go back to school in August, there's already some knowledge that's lost a little bit over the summer. We just extended that. If we end a little earlier, we've already lost 2 weeks, and we're already going to end a little earlier. I worry if we extend that to 4 weeks of loss online, kids that are already suffering from a gap of exposure or learning would suffer more. And that's why I feel like the 15th is a good compromise.
Well, I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand your argument, because your argument is they need to be engaged. And so we're going to reward that by cutting off a week early.
If I had my recommendation though to take it, you know me, because I hate calm snow days.
Well, but that's my question.
Right.
Why is it your recommendation that we don't go to the end if these kids need so much connection? Why are we doing that? It's a dishonest to the kids.
Because I think there's going to be a gap. We're going to have to do a lot of housekeeping stuff, like getting belongings home to kids. There's going to be some work in a typical shutdown is not that big of a deal because the kids are at school. We're thinking through things like letter of intent. We have this whole gamut of things that we have to do to shut down school at the end. And so 4 days seemed like a good compromise to get teachers a little bit of breathing room so that the shutdown can happen. I just, in respect for our families, I think it's a good compromise.
Okay, so we're taking, so in a typical year, we're taking the last week of school to shut down. Is that what you're telling me?
I think when kids go home from school the last day, they have their coat with them and their backpack.
Okay, no, I'm just asking you for a teacher's, on a teacher standpoint.
Yeah.
You're telling me the last 4 days of the school year, there's no instruction going on and they're shutting down.
Well, at Charles Page High School, the last 2 days of semester tests.
What I think she's getting at is that in a typical year, we don't need to take 4 days, but because everything was cut off so abruptly, we have kids that have left. Like today, I was worried about a lot of kids that left their coats at the building and they couldn't get it back. And it was so cold today. And there's a lot of stuff that's still left in the building. Sherry and I walked by the band room locker room just now, and it's full of personal possessions that they couldn't take and couldn't come back for. So not only are we going to have paperwork that we have to file for the end and to finalize teacher contracts as far as their obligations, but we're also going to have to work with the public in short, like smaller numbers. Like right now, we can't have more than 10 together in this room. If it's still that way in May and they're having to come to get their stuff, we're going to have to work through that. And I think it's going to take a lot longer to get their personal possessions back to them. And that's part of it that we don't normally have to deal with. But on the other side of it, I think that's why you're saying that you wanted to end a little early so we could take care of that. But if we go further back, I think that's where we get a little bit more worried. If we go further back to the 8th, I think the 15th is a compromise that allows us to extend instruction as far as we can to fulfill and help kids with those gaps in learning, but still allow us to end the year and get those possessions that.
I just look and say, I think there's also the possibility, we don't know, nobody knows, that we're still doing distance learning in August.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, why not use that last week for some more professional development and get a plan together for that so the teachers are not.
Yeah. And I told them today, Rusty, and to that end, there could be, because teachers are on contract technically until the 21st. That's when they're on contract. Most area districts, in fact, in the FAQs from the State Department, they say teachers should be expected to finish out their contract. There's no doubt. And so in that time, I said today to them, don't be surprised if we institute PLC meetings in that last week at some point to draw groups back together at grade level and subject level teams so that we can debrief about what we need to do. Because come fall, come August, if we're in the same predicament, we're gonna have to take grades. We're gonna be instituting grades or credit. Why not take advantage of real-time practice, quote unquote, that we can do now in order to prepare.
So that even more makes me say end on the 8th, and you have that time for sure.
We're probably going to have to disagree on this one, because I feel very strongly about pursuing forward to get kids, if they're willing to connect, why would we not?
Well, and see, that's what I'm saying. Why are you shortchanging them a week then?
Then let's do it.
Well, I'm just asking.
That was my first reflection, Bo. Let's take it to the 21st. I really felt like we needed to do that. But in an effort to try to ease the burden of our people that have to be at school, to do the close-up, we have lockers. I just had a conversation with Ms. Hamilton at Northwood of lockers that are full of personal possessions. We dispersed the essential, the medicine, things that we knew kids had to have, but we have belongings that at some point we're going to have to, in small groups, disseminate to people. And so that was one of the reasons why we felt like we maybe should be a little bit more flexible with a few days at the end of school so that we could have time to do that. I don't think, here's the deal, what's so funny about school and calendar, this can incite some of the biggest discussions about what we should do with the calendar. You put a snow day on social media, which I don't, by the way, I just don't think that that's a real good metric to base a decision on. But if you do that, you'll get a laundry list full of people's opinions, and you're not going to solve all of them.
Right.
You're just not. If I put it out there for 400 seniors, what should we do about graduation? You're gonna get,
The only reason I put that out there was because the conversations I had already led me to believe that.
yeah,
And so just another level of confirmation to see if that's what people,
I just think that's a small number considering how many kids we have in the district. Again, that's the reasons on the board agenda for tonight for.
I like the opportunity to give the kids that want to participate an extended time, if that's an extended time, I think it's a shortened time. And the ones that want to will, the ones that don't want to, they're not going to anyway.
Correct.
and our teachers work their tails off for 3 or 4 students.
There's no question. There's no question about that.
But
I think our teachers would work their tail off for one student.
They would,
that's what I'm hearing,
but we're gonna require them to.
and I think they're more than happy to do it.
I would disagree.
I think a lot of them are.
Madam
There are
Chair,
some
we-
who are and some who aren't.
Madam Chair, we got a proposal from the superintendent. I'll make a motion that we approve the revised 2019-20 school calendar presented by our superintendent. I'll put that in form of a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second, any other discussion?
And I appreciate your comments. I think what she's offered is a compromise. So,
If that's the decision the board makes, that's what we go with, and we all are happy.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? I just feel like we need to offer the opportunity. And I feel like the teachers are professionals. I've done many things in my job that I didn't feel should fit in my normal job description, but you do what you do.
I said they're already doing it, and so I'm just saying we could give them a little relief at the end.
Yeah, and I feel like there are a few extra days there. Last year we closed early too,
We shut
and they
off,
had to scramble.
yeah, we shut off just abruptly because of the flooding, we just said, we're done.
The main thing is, I just feel like we need, for the kids that want the opportunity, for the parents that want the opportunity, we need to provide that. And, if they don't want to, if they don't have, it's an option. Anyway, any other comments? All right, vote please.
Dan,
No.
Mullen,
aye.
Knuckle,
No.
Wagers,
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Item number 40, yeah, is the policy revision for Board of Education meetings so that we have the flexibility to do this virtually. In light of, this would have been the first agenda item on the special meeting, but since we didn't have a special meeting that way, we chose to put it as an action item, so it appeared in the special meeting at the beginning of consent, and this just allows us to hold meetings virtually.
I'll make a motion to approve item 40.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion?
That'll give us an opportunity in the future if the way it's worded, if one of us wanted to be away and call in, we
Right.
could. That's cool. I love that.
Right, exactly.
Until the governor says we can't do it.
Right, exactly. But I love the way, that was a Gary Wordsmith
Mhm.
piece, just so we have to go back and change that agenda item. Yeah.
Vote please.
Dan,
Aye.
Mullen,
Aye.
Knuckle.
Aye.
Wagers,
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye. Any other business not known?
Thank you for putting a meeting together like this. This was
Yeah,
awkward,
it was all,
but it's
it
kind
was
of,
awkward.
we got it done.
Oh, yeah, because we had no choice.
That's true.
Any announcements?
No, there are no announcements.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, vote please.
Dan, Mullen, Knuckle.
Aye.
Wagers,
Aye.
Wagner. Aye.
Yes, good night.